What would you say if a cop looked you in the eye and said, "We just want to talk right now"? If you answer that the wrong way, you can talk yourself straight into handcuffs. And the scary part is most people think they're being polite when they're actually building the case against themselves. Before I reveal the exact words, hit subscribe right now so you can find this video again when you need it most. And smash, because what you're about to hear could protect your freedom in a real police stop. Here's what you're about to learn. The one sentence that tells you whether this is a friendly chat or a legal trap. The exact words that shut down questions without sounding aggressive. The Supreme Court rulings that back you up when officers try to keep talking. And the mistake that causes normal people to give away their rights in under 10 seconds. I've analyzed over 200 body cam videos and the pattern is always the same. The officer sounds calm, the driver tries to be nice, then the driver starts explaining. That explanation turns into more questions. Those questions turn into consent, contradictions, or admissions. Here's the reality. You do not lose cases only because of evidence. A lot of people lose because they keep talking when they should stop. Let me show you exactly how to stop that from happening to you. Now let's talk about why this moment is so dangerous. When an officer says, "We just want to talk," it sounds harmless, it sounds casual. It sounds like if you cooperate, the whole thing ends faster. But that line is often used to lower your guard. Most people hear it and think, I've done nothing wrong, so I should just explain myself. That's where everything goes sideways. Your words can be twisted. Your timeline can be picked apart. Even innocent mistakes can sound like lies later. Most people have no idea that talking is not the safe move they think it is. Here's the reality. Police are trained to gather information. You're not trained to protect yourself in that moment unless you learn this now. Former police officers have confirmed this works, and defense attorneys use this exact line in court because the first few seconds matter more than almost anything else. The first thing you need to do is figure out what this really is. Is it a voluntary talk, or are you being detained? You do that with one question. You look at the officer and say this: "Am I being detained, or am I free to leave?" Those exact words. Memorize that line. Say it calmly, say it clearly, then stop talking. Why does this work? Because it forces the moment into the open. It makes the officer choose. If you're free to leave, then leave. Don't stay and keep chatting. If you are being detained, then now you know this is not a friendly conversation. Now your guard goes up. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings. In plain English, police can talk to you casually if the encounter is voluntary, but if you're not free to go, that is a detention and different rules apply. Bad way. Most drivers say, "Sure, what do you need?" Then the questions keep coming and they hand over details the officer did not already have. Good way. Smart drivers say, "Am I being detained or am I free to leave?" Then the officer has to show his hand. Watch what happens when you do not ask that question. The officer says, "Where are you coming from?" You answer. Then he asks where you're going. Then why you were in that area. Then who you were with. Then whether there's anything illegal in the car. Then whether you'd mind if he takes a quick look. You think each answer is small, but together you are building a statement. If you mix up one detail because you're nervous, that can be framed as deception. If your friend later says something slightly different, now police say your stories don't match. This is how casual talk turns into probable cause arguments. Now watch what happens when you do it the right way. The officer says, "We just want to talk." You stay calm. You don't argue. You say, "Am I being detained or am I free to leave?" If he says you're free to leave, you say, "Okay, I'm leaving." Then you leave. If he says you're detained, you stop treating it like a chat. That changes everything. Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection because it draws a bright line between voluntary contact and a detention. The legal backup here matters. Florida v. Royer basically says police cannot make a person stick around in a supposed voluntary encounter if that person wants to leave, unless police have legal grounds to detain them. In plain English, if it's really voluntary, you can walk away. If you can't walk away, it's not just a chat anymore. And one more thing, this does not mean you get rude. It does not mean you pull away, argue, or refuse lawful orders. If you're driving, you still handle the normal basics like license, registration, and insurance. If you're in a stop and identify state during a lawful detention, you may have to identify yourself. But talking beyond that is where the danger starts. Listen closely because this is critical. Your goal is not to win an argument on the roadside. Your goal is to protect your words. Have you ever been asked something like this during a stop? Drop a comment below and tell me what the officer said first. The second tactic is the line that shuts down questioning without making things worse. Here's exactly what you say. "I'm invoking my right to remain silent." Word for word. Then say nothing else about the facts. Not a little, not just one more thing. Nothing about where you were, what happened, who was with you, or why anything looks suspicious. This matters because silence by itself is not always enough. That shocks people, but it's true. If you just go quiet without clearly saying why, courts have said that may not protect you the way you think. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings. In Burgess versus Tompkins, the court said you need to clearly invoke your right to remain silent. And in Salinas versus Texas, the court made it even more important in a non-custodial setting to say you're relying on your right instead of just hoping silence speaks. Plain English? Do not just stare. Do not just shrug. Use the words. Bad way. Most drivers say, I didn't really do anything, or I can explain. Then they fill the silence with facts police can use. Good way. Smart drivers say, I am invoking my right to remain silent. Then the damage stops growing. Let me show you exactly why this is so powerful. Police are trained to use silence against you emotionally. They wait. They nod. They act like this is your chance to clear it all up. You feel pressure to speak because normal people hate awkward silence. But awkward silence is not your enemy. Uncontrolled talking is. Here's the trick they don't want you knowing. Once you start explaining, you usually cannot explain enough. Every answer creates 2 more questions. Every denial gets tested. Every detail gets compared later to bodycam, dispatch notes, witness statements, and your own future memory. This is 100% legal. You are not obstructing by calmly refusing to answer investigative questions. You're using a constitutional protection. Defense attorneys use this exact line in court because it is clean, simple, and hard to twist. There's a huge difference between refusing a lawful command and refusing to answer questions. If an officer says, step out of the car, you comply. If an officer asks, whose bag is that? Or why were you in that neighborhood? That is where your silence matters. Watch what happens when someone ignores this. They say, look, I was only there for a minute. That one sentence places them at the scene. Then they say, I didn't know that was in the car. Now they just connected themselves to the car and the item. Then they say, my friend borrowed it earlier. Now they brought in another person, and another story police can test. In under 30 seconds, they have made their defense harder without meaning to. Now watch the better path. The officer asks question after question. You stay respectful. You say, I am invoking my right to remain silent. If the officer keeps pushing, you repeat it. Calm voice. Same line. No extra words. Former police officers have confirmed this works because it tells them you understand the game. And when you understand the game, you stop giving away free evidence. The third tactic is the strongest line of all once questions keep coming. Here's exactly what you say. I want a lawyer. I will not answer questions without my lawyer. Memorize that. Say it just like that. Then stop talking. Why is this different from just saying you don't want to talk? Because asking for a lawyer is like putting a lock on the door. Miranda v. Arizona made this protection famous. Plain English? Once you clearly ask for a lawyer during custodial questioning, police are supposed to stop interrogating you. That does not mean the stop ends. It means the questioning should stop. That one sentence protects you when pressure gets higher. Bad way. Most drivers say, maybe I should get a lawyer, or do you think I need an attorney? Then officers keep talking. Good way. Smart drivers say, I want a lawyer. I will not answer questions without my lawyer. And the legal line gets much stronger. This is where people mess up because they soften the words. They say, I think I might want a lawyer. They say, should I get one? They say, maybe I need legal help. That sounds close, but close is not the goal here. Clear is the goal. Direct is the goal. Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection because weak wording creates room for more questions. Strong wording closes that room. Let me show you exactly how this plays out in real life. The officer says, if you didn't do anything wrong, why do you need a lawyer? That question is bait. The answer is not a speech. The answer is the same line again. I want a lawyer. I will not answer questions without my lawyer. If the officer says, we can clear this up right now, same answer. If the officer says, only guilty people ask for lawyers, same answer. You do not defend the request. You make the request. This is 100% legal. Asking for counsel does not make you guilty. It makes you smart. I've analyzed over 200 body cam videos, and the people who get hurt most are usually the ones who keep trying to sound innocent. Innocent people talk themselves into trouble every day because they think truth alone will save them. Truth matters, but timing matters too. A lawyer helps make sure your truth comes out the right way. Watch what happens if you skip this and start giving your side. They find one thing that does not fit their notes. Now they say you changed your story. Then they circle back and ask why. Now you're defending memory gaps instead of protecting yourself. That spiral is brutal, and once it starts, it is hard to stop. 90% of drivers don't know what's coming next. Stay with me, because this next move is what keeps a talk from turning into a search. The fourth tactic is short, simple, and huge. If they ask to search your car, bag, pockets, or phone, say, I do not consent to any searches. Why say it? Because consent changes the whole legal fight later. Schneckloth versus Bustamante says a search based on consent can be valid. If you say yes, or act like yes, you may give away one of your strongest arguments. So do not help them. Let them own that decision. Bad way. Most drivers say, I guess that's fine, or I don't have anything to hide. Then the search becomes much harder to challenge later. Good way. Smart drivers say, I do not consent to any searches. Then police must rely on their own legal reason, not your permission. Here's the key. You do not physically resist. You simply say the line clearly so the body cam catches it. Refusal makes you legally careful. Now let's tie the law together. Florida versus Royer. Burgos versus Tompkins. Salinas versus Texas. Miranda v. Arizona. And Schneckloth versus Bustamante. These cases connect directly. Ask if you are detained or free. Invoke silence clearly. Ask for a lawyer clearly. Refuse consent clearly. Now, a real-world scenario. You're pulled over for a stop sign. The officer asks where you're coming from. You say, am I being detained or am I free to leave? He says you are detained. You respond, I am invoking my right to remain silent. Then he asks to search. You say, I do not consent to any searches.